Talk about creative narrative suicide because that's the only way that I could describe everything that happened to this show. And no, I'm not talking about Star Wars. That's beating a dead horse at this point. Although we are talking about something quite a bit older. And what do I mean by that? Well, we're talking about a show where the author who created the manga series that the show is based on, the studios, the publisher in the Japan branch, and the, animation team and coordinators all basically entered a Mexican standoff, and instead of finding a common ground, pulling a path of Neo, or, doing something else like Trigun did, they just all pulled the trigger and absolutely killed the series. And to be fair, it's definitely not the manga artist's fault. Some corporate CEO out there decided to make some executive decision, and it absolutely ruined everything. So, what happened? What series am I talking about? And first we have to start off with, it is Tokyo Ghoul. And we had an amazing beginning manga series. It was pretty popular. I heard a little bit something about it, but never got around to reading or watching it until recently. And so I get around to watching the first season. Well, in the background of back when, in sometime around 2010, 11, 12, somewhere around there, they had the manga artist. He basically written everything up to season 1. He hadn't written up to season 2. Okay, but the animation team, the American side of things and the animation side of things, they were just faster. Okay, they got through the whole thing, and the manga series, the creator just hadn't written season 2 yet. He gave them cliff notes and basic ideas, and they decided they weren't big enough or grand enough, so they scrapped all of it and wrote their own season. They had to tweak part of season 1 to do this, and then they wrote their whole own season. Now, I think you already see a problem here. Manga artist, he creates the rest of the manga, and it becomes the number one manga in Japan at the time, at a time where there was a lot of different animes and a lot of different mangas coming out. So there was an extremely high competition here, okay? This was not like some vacuum of nothing, alright? This was a time period where everybody had nothing better to do than watch Obama deport people and read manga and play Yu-Gi-Oh cards. That was like the whole span of what everybody was doing. Okay, Naruto had come out recently, right? Actually, Shippuden by this point was coming out. So, number 1 in Japan, kind of a big deal. Well, here's the problem. Because of this, the Japan side of things and the publishers regarding the manga series wanted the anime to return to its source material for season 3 so that they could sell more volumes. And the CEOs did not want to expend any extra money. The publishers for the animation side of things, animation team, did not want to spend any extra time or money or effort creating an alternate timeline. And the author, of course, was royally pissed, because they deserved to be, because they were robbed of their season 2. So, everybody pulled the trigger in their little Mexican standoff, and we got season 3. Keep in mind that the manga fans are already pissed off. They've already left, because of season 1. They're not going to watch anything, okay? They're going to read the series, right? They're already mad. Well, now the anime fans, and after I got to season 2, we get to season 3, and it's boring as piss, just because I don't have the context. I have zero context, Everybody else, at the time back then probably had zero context, I would imagine. And then that's when I Googled everything, and I was like, holy shit, this is a mess. Season 3 was so hated because it was trying to appeal to manga fans that were not present, that had already been driven off. And it was so boring as piss to the anime fans because they don't have the context, they don't have any of the clues, and now they have to sit through something completely unrelated to the Season 2 that they just watched. And wouldn't you know it, every single one of them left. Season 3 absolutely tanked, and it pretty much killed the series. That's why there is no Season 4 or 5 or whatever. And the author, who had been basically working every single day of a week for more than 14 hours a day to get this series out, who somehow couldn't make this series fast enough because greedy execs kept pushing things too quickly with no concern about his safety or health, he was burned out. He did the rest of the series, he got the manga out there, and then he fucked off promptly and never wanted to do anything again. Because they killed his creature. Okay, they killed his creation with their greed and their stupidity. And the sad part is not only could they have been basically Jujutsu Kaisen before Jujutsu Kaisen, because they were getting a pretty big budget. Season 2 had a real big budget. But, they could have just pulled a Path of Neos. If you haven't played Path of Neos, you get towards the end of the game, it explains what the actual movie ending is of the third movie. And then they explain how, for a video game, that would be boring. They could have explained all of this to us and be like, we are going to give you Season 2 and Season 3 for the manga. That would have brought all the manga fans back. Okay? And then you're like, we're going to continue with Season 3 at a later point, and that would have kept all of the anime fans. They could have split it into 2 different They could have split it into 3 different timelines. And I probably would have read, watched, and burned through all 3, because why not, man? I did it with, Trigun after all. Well, except for, Trigun Stampede. That one was fucking terrible. And no, it's not more manga accurate. Go actually read the manga. But with this in mind, they could have done that. They didn't want to do that because that would have required a little bit more investment and a little bit more effort. And they also didn't do it because, they had already burned all of their bridges with the manga artist, the guy who created the whole thing to begin with. And by this point, he was just ready to fucking quit. What you could have done was, I don't know, paid him more money, got him, a team, got him a couple writers, a couple, drawers, lighten the load on his end a little bit. Did you do that? No, you didn't. You weren't willing to give him any kind of resources. So, no fucking wonder he did not stick around. This is, all in all, just all around a narrative suicide caused by petty greed, just an unwillingness to spend the extra buck. And have you guys seen Jujutsu Kaisen? Okay, Jujutsu Kaisen has doubled their budget every single fucking season, and Season 3 is blowing my mind. Okay, it looks like they're doubling their budget every episode now. It looks like they can just get away with that too, because everybody fucking loves the series, alright? And Tokyo Ghoul was already at that point. They just, threw it all away, like, right at the last minute. They all could not compromise, and the only compromise that they really need to do was support their creator and invest a little bit more money. And I mean, next lineup was video games, merchandise, stuff like that. Hot Topic would have been extremely marketably viable because, I mean, Kaneki basically wears bondage gear to every fight, and, well, that's all Hot Topic does. Could you imagine Spencer's right now? Like, they could have kept this series going for another, 13, 14 years, and Spencer's was around by that point. Okay? They had not one golden goose, they had two. If they were smart, they could have had four. Okay? They could have kept pumping money into this, and they could have, kept doubling or tripling their returns, and they could have had basically a series that might have been the only series to be able to compete with Jujutsu Kaisen, which would actually be a good thing, because Jujutsu Kaisen probably would have gotten more of a budget to begin with. And, in that sort of world, something like the Dan still exists, for all you guys that are fans of that. Like everything that exists now would still exist. It's just these other companies would be forced to take those more seriously from the get-go. So it also would have benefited everyone. Just any anime, even if you weren't a Tokyo Ghoul fan, it would have benefited you greatly.